Columbia, South Carolina, its involvement in the Civil War. By Lauren Allen.
Jefferson Davis was elected president of the Confederate States, and he was elected president 2 weeks before Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated. Jefferson Davis told President Lincoln a week after he was inaugurated, "Get out of Fort Sumter and we're going to take it." And Abraham Lincoln said, "No, you're not." So the Confederates bombarded Fort Sumter. So on April 12, 1861, the first shot was fired in Fort Sumter, South Carolina. As the Civil War started, both the North and the South thought the war would last no longer than 90 days. It's 3 months. But it went on for 4 years. 620,000 men died in the Civil War. More men than all the other wars of America put together died in the Civil War.
The First Baptist Church. Following the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, the delegates in South Carolina met to discuss seceding from the United States. They met at the First Baptist Church of Columbia because it was the largest meeting place. The delegates voted 159-0 in favor of seceding on December 17, 1860. The delegates did not sign the order, however, for several days. The convention had to relocate to Charleston, South Carolina, because of an outbreak of smallpox in Columbia. The First Baptist Church and the important events that occurred there became a symbol of pride for the South and a point of anger for the North. When the Northern Army invaded Columbia, they set fire to Washington Street Methodist Church by mistake. Let's hear the story from a docent from the historic Columbia Foundation.
When the people came here to secede from the Union, they came to this church and they drew up the articles or the list of complaints that they had that would lead to them withdrawing from the Union and becoming the Confederate States. When Sherman came through Columbia 4 years later, he came to this church because he wanted to burn it because this is where the Civil War started. There was a man out here who was a person who came to the church, and they asked him to stand out in front and guard the church against the Yankee soldiers. So a Yankee soldier came up to him and said, "Is this the First Baptist Church?" And he said, "No, it's across the street." So we'll have to go back. And they burned the Methodist church across the street because the guy said it wasn't the right church.
Oral tradition has attributed these pieces to have been used on the first day of secession convention that was held at the First Baptist Church in Columbia. Sherman attacks the Capitol. Sherman captured the state capital of Columbia, South Carolina, on February 17, 1865. Fires began that night, and by the next morning, most of the central city was destroyed. Some claim the fires were accidental. Others argue that Sherman's forces set the fire on purpose. Still, others believe that the retreating Confederates burned bales of cotton on their way out of town. Sherman's forces destroyed virtually anything of the military value in Columbia. The current State House still shows the mark of the attack. Bronze stars show where the cannonballs hit the building. Let's hear from our docent from the historic Columbia Foundation.
Okay, this is a statue honoring George Washington, who came to visit South Carolina when he was President of the United States. Then during the Civil War, the troops that Sherman brought into town, the Yankees, in the War of Northern Aggression, broke off George Washington's walking stick. Usually it's supposed to go all the way down to right here in this little spot. And the people who put Columbia back together after the Civil War decided to leave it that way to remind them what the Yankees did to the town.
Weapons of the Civil War. Here are some weapons the Confederates used in the Civil War. The Hunley is a submarine that Confederates used to attack Union ships with torpedoes. The soldiers cranked the propeller shaft to move the submarine. They attacked at night. The Hunley sank off the coast of South Carolina after sinking a Union ship. Nobody knows why the Hunley sunk or what happened during its final moments. A replica of the submarine is in the Columbia State Museum. Confederate soldiers used muskets to shoot Union soldiers. Greg Evans, a Civil War reenactor, will show us how it fires.
Now the uniform I'm wearing, this is a replica. This is actually what the uniforms look like at Fort Moultrie in 1861. All wool, and this is called a musket. The way we would load our muskets, this is powder. Okay, and you take, we're not going to do this because your grandma would let.
It's okay with me.
You rip that off and you put the powder in it. Okay? And then you put a bullet in it. This is the real gun. Then you take what we call a cap. And we put the cap right on here. Okay, so when the cap hits this, it ignites the powder, and we'll just shoot the cap off. Okay, just like a cap gun.